As I said to you, I am from Read Women, a book club where we read women, and your book is one of our favorites. We read this all the time.
Good.
So I wanted to ask you questions about being a woman in book world and also in the deaf industry. You have strongly different opinions from the other people from the deaf industry, mostly. Né? Can you talk a little about that?
Yeah, absolutely. The deaf industry is still a male-dominated industry, and that's changing. But it's sort of like, I say, it's sort of like turning the Titanic around. Like the iceberg is there, but you can't just like whoosh. It's like, oh, it's going to take a long time where women are actually the owners of the funeral homes. And part of what I'm doing now, and I feel like it's necessary to do, is I am opening a new funeral home, and the goal is to make it very economically viable as a model, not because I want to be wealthy and have this really popular funeral home, but more because I want the men in power to see that you can have a model of funeral home that's about family involvement, that's about really green options, about specifically holding space for a family, these sort of what we think of as female values, let's be honest, and still make it a thing that people want and will come to us and can be a way to own and run a funeral home. Because right now, all of those values are being dismissed by the men in power as something, oh, no one really wants that. No one's really going to pay for that. No one's really cares about that. When it comes down to it, they just want to be put in the grave and to be embalmed and to do it like we do it. And we have to be able to show them through numbers and through money, which is something that talks for them, that that's not the only way to do it. And so that's sort of one of my goals in the next 5-10 years, is to prove that it is possible to do something different in the funeral industry. And I've gotten used to the criticism from men in the industry because it's so silly. I think it would be harder if they were criticizing my advocacy or what I'm actually saying. But they're not. They're just criticizing me as this like evil harpy creature who's like a fame whore who just wants attention. And it's kind of funny me saying that in front of this giant wall of my books. I'm like, I'm not a fame whore at all. I just live in front of this giant wall of my books. But I know why I'm doing it, and I know that my intentions are good and sincere. And if I wanted fame, talking about corpses is not the way to get it. It's the worst way to shoot to fame, I would say. So I know what I'm in it for, and I know why I'm doing it, and whatever thing they want to come up with that I am doesn't bother me that much anymore.
Oh, that's great. You came here now, and Dark Side is releasing your book, but you have a new book coming on. Can we talk about a little?
Yeah, the new book?
Yes,
the new book is Will My Cat Eat My Eyeballs? And it's questions from children about death and about dying. And that kind of, interestingly, that is often women's work as well, is talking with children about the harder subjects, or it just falls to women often. And hopefully the idea is to not only be fun for children because they ask really blunt questions, but to give everyone the vocabulary to have more of a open dialogue about it. Because if a kid asks, what's grandma doing in the grave, that kid doesn't mean like, is she going to heaven? Like, that kid means like, is she decomposing? Like, what's happening to her body? Is she disintegrating? Is she bones? Is she just hair and like crazy eyes? Those are the real questions that people have, but only kids feel comfortable asking it. So hopefully I will be able to come back to Brazil, and Dark Side will have me back to
we hope so.
talk more about that book.
Kids are more direct to ask the questions.
Yes. Yeah.
And about this book, what can you say about it?
Yeah, this book was about traveling the world to look at different death rituals and customs. And because I am not always a big fan of what happens in the United States when we die, and I want to reform that system, one of the best ways to do that is look at how other cultures handle death and dying and the benefits and the drawbacks of what they do. And I don't mean just so we can steal them and adopt them, especially cultural rituals.
Yes,
we're not
of
just
course.
going to take them and use them, which is actually a problem with things like Day of the Dead or Dia de Muertos in the United States, because, you know, people will just be like, oh, you paint your face like a skull, it's so fun, you know, and that's not what we're trying to do. But at the same time, when we're thinking about a place like Mexico, okay, we can't just take their rituals and make them ours, but they have these 3 or 4 days every year where it's all about death and all about grieving and all about welcoming the dead back among the living and having those memories. We don't do that at all. We don't have, you know, if somebody dies in America, you have to go back to work 3 days later. If it was your husband, if it was your child, you have to immediately come back to work. And so without taking their rituals, how do we take the idea that it's okay to take time after someone dies, or it's okay to openly acknowledge the death? There were people at the cemetery during Dia de Muertos who their baby had died 18 years ago, and they were still there and they were still mourning. Where a person in the United States would be told, oh, that baby died.
Get over it.
Yeah, get over it. Like,
Yes.
that baby died 2 years ago. Why aren't you over it? You had another kid. You're fine. And it's not fine for that person. And so being able to show that different cultures have different openness and different values, I thought was really valuable for people to hear.
Yes, in Latin America, we mourn more, I think.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Or you're given the ability
Yes.
to mourn more. I believe we have traits as cultures, but at the same time, it's really what the culture allows for.
Yes.
It's the space that people give for it. You know, who knows how much, you know, people in the United States would mourn if they were even allowed to say its name, or even allowed to say that someone died.
Yes. Well, so one last question. In your book, Smokettes in Your Eyes, one of my favorites, you talk about Brazil. And you have a video about Santos. But what can you say about Brazil? Did you know our culture? You're interested? What can
Yeah,
you
I'm
say?
very interested, and this trip has been incredible in finding out more. I always, when I go somewhere, I love to do things like this, but I'm also like, where's the cemetery? Where's the crematory? Who is the person I need to talk to? Because that's where I really get more, I don't want to say material, but more ideas and more inspiration, I guess, for future projects. And something that I'm really fascinated about in Brazil, yes, I did visit the necropole in Santos, the
Yes.
14-story thing, which we don't have anything like that. But I'm fascinated by how quickly you turn over the graves in Brazil, the idea that after 3 years you
Yes.
remove the body and remove the bones and put them in an ossuary or put them in the back and a new person goes in. Where in the United States, something I've been really interested in for a while is the idea that everybody has to have their same grave for 500 years,
Yeah.
which is not realistic. It's not helpful for land use, it's not helpful for cemeteries, and I really think that the United States needs to bring in those values, bring in the idea of recycling
Yes.
graves. And because I'm such a green burial advocate, just a body straight into the ground, those bodies decompose really
Yes.
quickly, so why aren't we using those graves again? You know, you just put a body straight into the ground, it decomposes into the soil, and then a couple years later you can use that same space and you can memorialize them maybe on a plaque or on a
Yes.
tree or something else, and it can be a more dynamic space as a cemetery. And if I was just a practitioner in the United States, I would never be thinking of these things. I would never be able to have these ideas. You need to go to other places where they do things completely differently and see them work and see them be totally normal here. And then you can start thinking about bringing the ideas together. So trips like this are incredibly important to me.
No. So thank you for talking to me, and thank you for your books. I hope you will enjoy your stay here.
Yeah, I will.
And hope to see you here in Brazil again with your
Me
new
too.
book.
Yes, exactly. Obrigada for the ladies, for the women. Obrigada.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Caitlin. Thank you so much. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.